کاوش مدیا.
If you look at what are the Iranians doing, you can sort of say like, what are they doing? And then like, what threats do they present? What are they motivated by? And I think there's two things that motivate Iranian foreign policy and national security. The first is purely defensive, which is, they have their own experiences. They want to deter others from attacking them. They have a long history of conflict with their neighbors, including like Iraq in the 80s. And so that part is understandable, right? And also, frankly, a long negative history with the United States that goes back to, really to 1953. So that part is understandable. What is less understandable is also a more offensive sort of part of their strategy, motivated by, a desire to sort of be a regional leader and hegemon, a desire to sort of punch at a higher weight than they have traditionally, and also to sort of push some of the ideology of the Islamic Republic. So it's really like both those things together are what drive their foreign policy. And we see this sort of present itself in three major challenges from an American perspective. First is, the issue of Iran's nuclear weapon, or the issue of Iran's pursuit of a nuclear program, I should say, right? And this is, I think, from an American perspective, the most significant challenge because of the global implications of it. The other two major challenges, and I'll talk less about these, partially because I know this is partially gets into Saurit's area. One is, they do support these various different proxy groups across the Middle East, Hezbollah, probably the most notable one, also, Iraqi Shia militias, which is a big issue for the US, in Syria, Assad and some of the various militia groups there, in Yemen, the Houthis. This is their approach to project power. It's also something that's pretty cheap to do that they've gotten very good at doing, right? And so like, rather than try to fight the US and America, you can't fight an aircraft carrier with any kind of conventional capability they can, but like these types of things, you can't fight with an aircraft carrier, right? So like, it's a way for them to do what we call asymmetric warfare. Then also just one other thing, and then I'll leave it to Saurit on this, is they don't view all these groups as the same. They have different relationships with all these different groups. And there's the ones that they trust the most and are kind of more like the gold standard versus other, and you probably put Hezbollah at the very top of that list. And then just the third challenge is missiles. They have a ballistic missile program, which is tied to their nuclear program. I worry, frankly, less about that than I do more about like more close range missiles. Their ability to increasingly, they have technology that allows them to be more accurate missiles, for example, that they launched on Saudi oil facilities a couple of years ago, and they hit with remarkable accuracy that showed some real signs of improvement. They have, even like other things like drones that they use, and this technology that they've obviously been exporting to Syria and to Lebanon, to their proxies to threaten Israel. And so that's kind of the third challenge. I think where the biggest potential actually is on this question of Iranians' use of missiles and UAVs and things like that, where Saudi Arabia, for example, and UAE are facing some of the same kinds of technologies and channels coming out of Iranian proxies in Yemen that are attacking targets in Saudi and UAE that Israel is facing from like Hezbollah and to a lesser extent from Hamas. Which are similar to the kinds of technologies that, Americans are facing in Iraq in some cases.
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند.